This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Oh yes, let us pick up those mics and get on with this thing. So, by the way, does my hair look all right? Is the shirt okay for tonight?
What the hell are you talking about?
Seriously, should we have done some dusting?
No, what are you guys talking about? What's going on here?
Phil, are you really just going to wear that? It's not even a polo.
It's a black freaking t-shirt. Who cares?
I mean, we are doing the Misdirected Mark 101. It's a jump-on show, where new listeners get to meet us, and we want to look our best.
Chris, you got to check out the numbers. This thing's still mostly a podcast. No one's really seeing us. Seriously, guys, can we just get this going on before we lose all those new listeners?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Here we go, I guess. And welcome to the 266th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight we are doing a new listener jump-on with a Misdirected Mark 101. But fear not, faithful listeners. We hope to have some tidbits and insights you may not be aware of. As always, my name is Chris.
And I am first sidekick Phil.
I'm Old Man Logan.
Second sidekick.
I feel like you're not a sidekick. I think, if anything, you've graduated to the person who runs the show, and I am your sidekick when I am here, and I then do the overshadow looking everything else.
That's a little joke. You have to go on the you gotta go in the G Plus community and find that. There was somebody asked today, listener asked if which one I was. Was I the main guy, the sidekick, or the other sidekick? So I think since I speak second, I think I'm first sidekick.
First sidekick?
Yeah.
Sure. If you want to be first sidekick. First sidekick hashtag Panda Man.
Well, yeah, we're gonna get into titles and roles around here in a second.
Yeah.
But yes, we're back. We're here. The show is on. Mm-hmm. And what is going on with you?
Wow, I'm so impressed that you got there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been not a very long time since we had a show, right?
Yeah, this is the short turnaround week because we recorded live Thursday.
So not much. We played Blades in the Dark.
Oh, we did.
I've been doing some writing and some editing and recording a podcast like I always do. That's just a normal thing for me. Nothing really, I suppose, interesting has been going on. Did I mention I saw I think I talked about Castlevania last week, Thursday, so...
I don't know, but Bob just saw it.
I just watched the whole thing this morning.
Castlevania's pretty good.
It is.
Yeah, it's worth the 4 episodes long that it is, and it's written by Warren Ellis, and there's going to be 8 episodes for the second season.
I mean, I do like me some Warren Ellis.
Yeah, me too. So I mean, that's good. So if you're a fan of Castlevania, the video games and whatnot, and the lore that goes around with it, go check it out. It's good stuff.
Am I right that Warren Ellis wrote one of my favorite comic books?
Global Frequency, baby.
He did, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Because I fucking love that comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, Warren Ellis is rather prolific when it comes to writing graphic novels and stories.
Oh,
and
no,
things.
I know. But I mean, we don't talk about Global Frequency very often, but that is seriously one of my favorite comics.
We should really figure out how to write a one-shot version of that game.
I attempted to a while ago, but I could do such a better job.
Yeah, I mean, your game design chops are way better now.
Yeah, I could do you know what I would do if I was going to do that game? I would do it in Fate.
Seems like a good one.
Well, because what you do is every time you need to tap the global frequency, you're creating an advantage.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, because it's timed, right? Like, you only have so much time to avert the disaster. That's just a stress track that constantly fills up until it fills all the way up.
Or allow me to back up for a second.
Uh-huh.
Or I may change my mind. I may do it in Gumshoe, and in which case I've turned the global frequency into some sort of pool of preparedness. That's like a pool that you can just like, instead of like you be the action guy, like you have a bunch of points and like only a couple of investigative skills, and then you have this nebulous pool of investigative skills that are finite for the duration of your adventure that you can spend to activate certain investigative skills. Like
That's
from the
clever.
And
Super
then
clever.
you just have to narratively, when you spend a point to activate that skill, you have to create the person.
Yeah. Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
you have to say,
Or
yeah, go ahead.
Or I can make it a card game with solo play capability, and you have to manipulate what's going on with like a pool of assets that you can pull.
I like it.
Well, that's actually a really good idea too.
Yeah.
So, new listeners,
This is a thing that we do now and
yeah,
again.
new listeners. We'll get into that in a second. We'll get into that in just a second about the game design stuff. But anyway, that was you, right?
Yeah, pretty much me. Like
Okay.
that's all. Blades in the Dark is a hard game to play.
Blades in the Dark is a hard game. It's a hard game to master. It's the first time in a little while that we've encountered a game where there's a learning curve.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I love this game. I mean, I do love it. I actually love this game. I am having some serious struggles with finding stuff in the book.
Yeah, that is a thing I mentioned on Down with D&D, which isn't out yet because we recorded it this afternoon, but...
Right. I mean, I'm having enough struggles that I am seriously considering, because I have the InDesign files, because I backed it, I'm seriously considering remixing the book.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Like, I'm seriously considering, like, the parts that are frustrating me, I'm just going to physically move them.
Yeah, there's some stuff in there that drives me crazy for finding information.
Yeah, there's a thing that I keep doing where I'm bouncing in from one side of the book to the other, and I'm not enjoying that. And I don't know if other Blades people are having that struggle, but there are things like the crew stuff, and then there are things about the crew like hold and whatever that are not in the same spot. It's a little frustrating.
The struggle is real.
And the thing is, we have the InDesign files, so it's not like we can't remix
Your own
the
personal
book.
remix.
Yeah. Anyway, I do, but I love the game. I don't want to say anything bad about it because if you learn this game is enjoyable to play.
Yeah, we're trying to play it the way that it's intended to. So, I mean, there was a bunch of places that we could have just hand waved stuff and moved along.
Yeah, but we're actually, we are, as you said, we're trying hard. We are trying hard to play it as written.
Because I feel like it has an intention. Like, there's a cycle of play that goes through playing through scores and downtime and all that stuff.
Oh, there is, and that part's actually clear in the book. I just want to make clear to the chat room, because the chat room's asking, what game are we going to remix? We're not actually changing any of the rules. I literally want to move sections of the rule book around.
This is about information distribution.
Yeah, I want to move sections of the rule book around so that things that I think should be adjacent to one another are adjacent to one another. That is all. The content of the book, the rules that are actually in it, I actually enjoy quite a bit.
It's actually one of my favorite books for setting material.
I love the setting.
Duskfall is
Duskfall is
badass.
awesome.
Also, the layout of the setting material is brilliant.
Yep.
Also, pretty badass.
Because it's fun to read and it's usable at the table. Because if you want to be in a district, you just flip open the 2-page spread and you have it right there.
That again, much things I love about that game, but some of the rules I'm looking in one place and they're in another, and I'm like and I would just get over that, except for the fact that we have the InDesign files where I'm like
I could totally
Chris,
do this.
can we just put this over here?
Strangely enough, we can.
Yeah, and then just make a new PDF out of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Robert?
Hey, so I am currently on day 2 of the night shift.
Working on the night shift.
Yeah.
I noticed the incredibly large iced coffee that you came into the house
I came in with a large iced coffee because I need it. Transition into the night shift is always difficult. This time was even more difficult because I had to work the 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. So then I immediately crashed and tried to sleep so that I could stay up all night Saturday and get prepped for Sunday night to work Monday morning. So I'm like half asleep. But during the course of the time between Thursday's show and now, I've been banging away trying to finish editing some D&D adventures because I got to get those out of the way because we need them done. And I need to move on to the Pip System core book for Third Eye Games.
I was talking to Aloy the other day. He showed me the full cover spread. Pretty slick.
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm looking
Good.
forward to looking at this
Yeah,
book.
it did a nice job. The cover art and all that is really slick.
Yep. Saw Spider-Man Homecoming twice since Thursday. It is a very entertaining movie.
Oh, that's right.
Go
I
see
saw
it.
that. Well, I went and saw that right after the last episode. That
Yeah.
movie's really good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good movie.
In fact, that you actually quickly packed up and left.
Yeah, he bailed on us.
Don't
to
worry,
go
that
see
that
it.
won't happen tonight. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
be here until we decide to quit.
So yeah, excellent. Well done. Well done folding Spider-Man into the MCU. Looking forward to more Peter Parker.
The Vulture
Good
is
times. The Vulture
one of
is
my
one of the
favorite
best bad
guys that's been presented in the Marvel Universe so far.
I know you told me so you had said to me, and again we're going to go with no spoilers, but you put him up against
I said
the
he was the best one since the Kingpin.
Since the Kingpin, I will agree.
Yeah.
I like I love Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin in Daredevil. Like,
he's by far the best villain that's been presented in a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. I mean, villains haven't been really the biggest. Wait. Wait, before I finish that sentence and let it fall completely out of my mouth. Loki's technically the villain for the Avengers.
He's good, but he's not as good, in my opinion, as the Vulture.
Not sure.
Because the
further watching of the movies further watching of Spider-Man is going to be required. I don't disagree that he isn't excellent. He is excellent, and actually there are a couple scenes in that movie, again with no spoilers, where I was like, whoa, holy shit, that's so good.
Michael Keaton brought the menace.
And the writers brought the writing. Like, you actually get why he does the things that he does, and what's
he has motivations, and he brings menace, and he's nothing to be trifled with.
And I think it's fair. It's fair. I would think it's fair. You actually have to take the Kingpin out of the running because the Kingpin has the benefit of a Netflix series. You get a lot of development for the Kingpin. Like, I mean, you get a whole hour dedicated to his background.
Yep.
Which you don't get with the Vulture. Like, because you can't. It's a 2-hour movie. Like, you don't get that full hour of development. So you got to put the Kingpin on. Like, the Kingpin gets like awesome Marvel villain because he's my favorite, but he gets an asterisk because he gets some serious character development.
Yeah, except by that logic, why is the Vulture then better than all the other
Netflix
series bad guys?
Well, because for some of the series, all right, Luke Cage killed the wrong villain because Cottonmouth was a way better villain than
Cottonmouth was a great villain until he wasn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they'd kept Cottonmouth, then that actually would have been pretty good.
We'd be having a different discussion.
Yeah. Iron Fist is Iron Fist.
I like Tennant's Purple Man.
Yeah, and the Purple Man was really good.
Kilgrave was awesome.
I still like the Vulture better than the Purple Man.
I think that's okay. I'm not critiquing. I thought Keaton's performance as a Vulture was excellent. We're drifting a bit here. I'm going to bring us back around, and I'm going to actually do my thing.
Yeah, another thing that we do in Misdirected Mark is we drift sometimes.
We do drift sometimes. What's going on with me? So I did a little baking on Friday. I made my Oreo cookie caramel dark chocolate pie. Seriously good stuff. And again, I'm starting to realize that cooking is very relaxing for me. So I actually quite enjoyed cooking and baking. That one wasn't really baking because there was no heat involved. You just prep it and keep putting it in the freezer. Anyway, I did a little of that. Saw Spider-Man Homecoming, also excellent. I played Rocker Boys and Vending Machines with She's a Super Geek on Saturday night. They were quite kind to record it in time for Ennie's voting. So you can actually hear me as Alt Steely, the chromed rocker boy. My description, because they all had to stop and look it up on Google. My description was that I looked like one of the Silverhawks. And then there was like a pause, and you could hear everybody like typing to see what that was.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We played some SIG on Sunday morning with Glenn.
Yes, we did,
and that was excellent. I'm still grokking that system, but I like it.
I get it.
I mean, I get it. It's a story game, and like you're asking questions and answering them. You're not preparing anything in front of it. But I'm getting it. And then we played some Blades, which I liked. It's still a bit of work, but I'm not to the point where I'm not frustrated with the game. I am. What's that? I am. You're frustrated with the game. I like the game. I keep telling myself like a little more mastery to get like some of these rules under my feet, and then this will, be even smoother. The procedures of play and the narrative that sometimes gets told at the table don't match up very well for me. There are some places where they gap, and it is kind of tricky. And it's a thing where sometimes I think it's the players, and I would point out Tony in this, where like
we make a declaration early, and then we don't play to that, and you're supposed to. Like, I think that's a thing that you should be doing.
I think the other thing is that there'll be a point where I'm going to stop running it ultra pure, and I'm just going to start making some rulings. And I'm just going to be like, yeah, that's a hold, or yeah, that's territory seized, and just not and not sit and fret about it. Like, I think there's going to be some room for some rulings in there, and then I think that will actually smooth out a few things. I have been reading. Actually been reading DCC in 2 formats. I have the free game day version, which is 0 and first level plus 2 adventures, which Brandon was really nice to send me.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, I actually finished that. And then I have the PDF, and I started reading that, and that's excellent.
I also own the PDF, and I've been reading that.
I'm digging it. Like, I'm digging how that game goes. And I had a really shitty day on Friday, so I bought myself game science dice.
Yeah, you were giving bad news to everybody, and then you were giving bad news to people. You were giving bad news for people on the internet. It was it was pretty great.
I gave bad news to my bosses like 3 times in a row on Friday, and then I was like, I'll just do it now all day as a service. So I did. People approached me on Twitter. I think my favorite one was somebody tweeted me and was like, "Hey, I found this great old TV show called Firefly." They're like, "Oh man, I can't wait to watch the rest of it." And I was like, you know what? Don't rush. Like, watch one a month. Like, don't rush. There's no need to upset yourself. Anyway, so yeah, that was that. My dice are going to be here on Thursday, and I have decided that I do not possess, I think, either the eyesight or the hand-eye coordination to hand ink them, like with an ultrafine Sharpie. So I'm going to rock it completely old school, and get out my white crayon and just color those mothers in.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I got red. I got the ruby red dice. Ruby red dice. Nobody wants to.
I'll get it.
It's a Fifth Element reference.
See, Fifth Element was this movie with
Ruby Rod.
But it was.
But the dice part I don't get.
No, but I'm just gonna color them in. I just got red
green,
dice.
right? It's green. Yeah. Totally green.
There you go.
Super green.
Super green.
I could use green. No, I won't.
I mean, I've seen the Fifth Element 30 times.
I know, me too. And Valerian in
it's coming out soon. Yeah, Valerian and the Planet of a Thousand Worlds.
Yeah.
City of a Thousand Planets.
City of a Thousand Planets. Thanks.
Yeah. By the way, this has been like the most rambly opening we've had in a while.
Oh yeah, which is good because we do that.
Let's get rambling.
Yeah. So hey, 101 people. Sometimes this happens. So.
Hey, me and Bob also played D&D last night.
Oh,
we
nice.
did.
It was fun. It was fun.
It's a good time. I like playing Roll20. The interface is pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Running around the Doom Vault's actually been a good time. Like, I haven't really done a straight dungeon delve in a very long time. Like, they're just hanging out in this dungeon, running around, killing stuff. And I've dropped hints for like 3 weeks that they should question people. And Drew Smith keeps killing everyone because his name is Red Beck and he's like a murderous mercenary. It's been pretty hilarious.
But last night we kept a whole bunch of critters alive.
Yeah. Got some information finally.
Yeah, when we get to the after show tonight, I mean, I'll talk about a few things that I'm kind of loving on DCC.
Absolutely.
There's some love going on in there.
All right, so before we get to our main segment for the evening, which is the bar and the 101 of the show, we're going to do an ad for our sponsor, one of our sponsors tonight, Bag Thulu and Wayward Masquerade. So, hey, Phil, do you remember Bag Thulu?
Yeah, holds all of humanity's hope within it.
Do you remember Mini Thulu?
Yep, adorable, clingy insanity.
Well, now there's Backpack Thulu.
Shut the front door.
That's right. You can have Cthulhu on your back.
Well, it was nice knowing you.
Yeah, I know, because you'll be the pride of Miskatonic University. Insanity and fame will rain down all around you, and then when the darkness falls, as Great Cthulhu rises up to devour all of humanity, at least he'll stop, look at you, and say, "Nice style, kid," before eating your soul.
What about while we're still alive? I mean, I'm into carrying stuff, right? Like backpacks and bags and stuff. Yep. Is this a thing?
Yeah, it's totally a thing. This monster has a mind-boggling appetite. The main compartment will devour multiple hardcover Call of Cthulhu books, pencil cases, smaller Cthulhus, and a lot more.
Oh man, are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, oh man, this thing is literally warping my mind as I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a smaller front compartment and 2 side compartments. Plus, There's a secret compartment in the head.
I know, right? Isn't that cool?
It's a secret.
Plus, the fabric, it's water resistant, rot and mildew resistant, and UV resistant.
Hey, like Bag Cthulhu, does this thing come in different colors?
Sure does. And you can get the biggest, most insane of the Bag Cthulhu line on BackerKit right now. Just click on the link in the show notes or the Bag Cthulhu banner on the website.
May the great old ones have mercy on our souls and wallets. Do 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 do.
Hey, it's the bar where we go to chat when we don't have any other room in the house to go to. So let's see what the topic is for today. So the topic for today is Misdirected Mark 101. We're going to talk about where the show came from, what the show's all about, and what the network's all about, all that good stuff, right? Is that the plan?
That is the plan.
All right, so...
Even down to what we mean by room.
So if you're an established listener, stick around. We're going to be putting things in this episode that you may not know, and hopefully answering questions that you may have for us, especially if you're in the chat room. Please, as we already mentioned earlier, ask us questions. Bob will be trying to write them down as fast as he can.
Yeah, I've been trying. Mo has been just bombarding the chat thing with questions since the beginning.
All right, don't let Mo do all the work, people.
I know, right?
Pick up and help Mo out.
So, what are we going to talk about tonight, Phil? What are the topics?
All right, so I got into this and I was like, wow, this is like more complicated than I thought it was.
It's a bit of a show.
It's a bit of a show, but here's what I got. We're going to talk about the history of the show. Oh, man, I realized this isn't in order with what the rest of the topic is. Hang on, let me just scroll and I'll tell you. We're going to talk about who we are first, who the hosts are. Then we're going to talk about what the show is about today. Because what the show is about today isn't necessarily what the show is about if you go into the backlog.
It's not at all.
Right. Then we're going to talk about the community, because we have a kick-ass community. Then we're going to talk about the network, because we are part of a kick-ass network.
Kick-ass.
Then we're going to talk about the history of the show, a little bit about the history of the show. Then we're going to talk about games that we talk about on the show, because we do that a lot.
Yeah, we do.
And then we're going to talk about important show terminology, because if you are not a regular here or new, there's some things we say frequently that we don't always explain.
Yeah, we don't say, I mean, I don't know if Phil wrote in there because I can't remember, but we don't say mechanic usually. We say mechanism.
Yep.
Like
I
that.
sometimes say mechanic, but we try not to do that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what's the deal with Encoded Designs, Gnome Stew, and Misdirected Mark. I wanted to make a Venn diagram, but I ran out of time.
That's fine.
Oh.
I made a verbal Venn diagram.
I am disappointed.
Yeah, I wanted to do it. It would have been fun. So anyway, that's what we're going to cover tonight, and we're going to start with who we are.
Yes, let us do that.
Yeah. So we're going to go in order for who has been on the show the longest, and not by age, which actually turns out to be reverse order anyway.
It's true.
Yeah.
Because Chris, you are the youngest of us. So Chris, you're going to start. So tell us. Start off by telling us what your role is on the show.
So I'm a co-host of the Misdirected Mark podcast. I also do, I mean, I guess you could give me the title of producer, I suppose, but really that doesn't mean anything because Phil is the producer too, and technically Bob is a producer also.
Well, you're the guy, I mean, maybe producer isn't the right word.
Let me hit what I actually do. So I'm like the technical guy. I do a lot of the audio editing, the website management. I'm the one that sets up the stream. I take care of all that stuff, the graphics, anything that's really mostly technical, and I pitch in and help out with the show notes here and there.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the fact you are hearing us is because Chris is, or seeing us is because Chris is doing his job.
And I've taught Bob how to do most of the audio stuff, so he could do it if he needed to.
So in boy band
he does most of the time, actually.
Well, yes, Bob can connect all the parts. I don't think Bob
We're
nor
getting
I.
Ahead.
What's that?
So we're getting ahead.
Yeah, we're getting ahead. Sorry. Okay. Boy band personality time. Which in this boy band, which one are you?
I mean, I guess whoever the leader guy is. I
are
suppose.
You the rebellious guy?
No.
Or are you not anymore, huh?
Not. I mean, I used to be.
So anyway, we're asking so tell listeners.
I mean, if we're going to talk about who the rebellious one is, it's totally you at this point in our
I don't know how I wind up as the rebellious one. I'm like the straight laced one.
Phil's the bad boy.
You're not.
Come on.
All right. Well,
I mean,
that's up for discussion
there's
later.
There's like two sides to your personality there.
I'm unaware of what we're talking about. Let's go back to you, Chris.
Phil's got more than two sides. He's more like an onion.
That's
There's
true.
layers.
I'm gonna make you cry. Is right.
Is he a 20-sided die with many facets?
Yes. How about some personality things, Chris? How would you describe yourself?
So I'm actually a pretty emotional and fiery person, and I try to use logic and intelligence to keep that all tamped down as best as I can, because I get a little splashy when I get too overzealous, and it doesn't always come out well for me. So I mean, passion is a good thing that I bring to everything that I do, but I am also it is also problematic for me. The way that I see the world is I don't remember things very well. Like, I don't have a locked steel memory, so it's a lot of impressions and ideas and things like that. So I can't always quote everything like everybody else can and whatnot. So that stuff doesn't work for me so much. So I kind of sit there and I pick my spots to interject commentary when and where I can.
Nice.
I also tend to try to think about things academically. I like critical analysis is one of my favorite things in the world to do. It was one of my favorite things in college. It's never really stopped. I love applying it to game theory and games in general. It's probably why I'm a pretty decent developer.
Mm-hmm. And as a gamer, like, where was your origin? Like, how far back you go?
I started playing role-playing games. Well, I mean, that's a really weird question, right? Like, so I played a lot of board games when I was really, really young. So, like, from the time that I was like that I can remember, like, I was always playing games.
Yeah. But where was your jump-in point for RPGs?
Well, is Hero Quest a role-playing game?
You know what? I'm going to say that's a good start.
I was 8.
Yeah.
It's close.
And then when I was 11, I played my first game at Gamma World. And then I played D&D shortly after that. And then then I started running D&D.
Let me ask you a question real quick. When you played Gamma World, was there like the face rip table for Gamma World, or did you play like the one that's like D&D-ish?
I don't remember.
Okay. Oh, because you don't remember things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 11 years old too, and it was at a cabin, and there was like 7 of us already was playing, and it was Gamma World, and it was kind of ridiculous.
I was just trying to land the dart on which version of Gamma World. I'm not even sure. That game changes dramatically over time.
Yeah, I'm not even really sure.
All right. Give us one or two non-gamer facts about you, because I know a few things about you.
I used to be a gigging musician
Yep.
for a few years when I was in college, and I used to play around town to get paid for it. I went to college 3 times. The first time for electrical engineering, the second time for music, and the third time for creative writing, and that's the one that I actually got a degree with.
Third time's the charm?
Third time's a charm. I mean, those are really some of the most pertinent non-gamer facts, I suppose.
Yeah. I think...
I have a 15-year-old son who's autistic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about him all the time. There you go.
Okay. I'll roll it on to me then.
Yeah, Phil, tell us about you.
All right.
What is your role on the show?
I am a co-host, and I am the main writer for the show.
You do write the show notes.
So I take care of the cheesy opening is almost now always me, and the main body. The main body of the show is pretty much, unless something's going on, the main body of the show is pretty much my responsibility.
For almost 30 episodes now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, in the past it was a little more collaborative, but now we've gotten to a point where I just write the show.
Which is good because it frees me up to do those other things that
yeah.
help.
I mean, I don't mind. I like doing it.
Yeah.
It's just that for a while we did it as a in bullet point, and now it's like we still do bullet points, but I just write the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't do too much of the technical stuff. Actually, I'm co-host on 2 different shows, and I don't touch any of the technical stuff other than like Audacity for recording my stuff. But what I bring to the show is writing. Personality-wise, I am hyper-organized, which is really just like a giant coping mechanism for anxiety. I hate competition / betrayal. And then, as we've learned over the years, that's not a thing I'm super comfy with. But yeah, I'm not really a competitive guy. I don't always like competitive board games. I prefer co-ops more times than not. Mm-hmm. I don't mind. There are some competitive board games I like that are a little less, like a little more low key, like King of Tokyo. Like, that doesn't bother me. I don't get super stressed out about that, but other ones I do actually get stressed out about. So I actually prefer.
What about Monopoly?
I fucking hate Monopoly.
Who really likes Monopoly?
I mean, I have the fix for Monopoly.
Well, the fix for Monopoly is actually playing it like it's actually written, which is like a vastly different game than how most people play it.
Even that game isn't so great.
Yeah. I have a fix for Monopoly too, which is play Ticket to Ride. I mean, we can have that discussion later. And I love collaboration.
Ticket to Ride is nothing like Monopoly, but okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's America's new board game. Like, stop playing Monopoly, just play Ticket to Ride.
Sure.
Okay. I love collaboration and long walks on the beach and sunsets. No. I do. I love collaboration. I think that's one of those things.
And ropes.
What?
And ropes.
Oh, ropes. Yes. Leather stuff. Yep. Control. I love control. That's very much me. Gamer wise, I'm an old dude. Not as old as Bob, as we'll get to in a second. But I came up through the Mulvey edition of D&D, the pink box.
How cute.
I played a ton of different games through the years, including more Palladium than I probably should be proud of, but I am. Conspiracy X, Vampire, Amber, Iron Heroes. Like I played like a whole chain of stuff before I got into indie games. Like I was a pretty trad gamer for a long time.
So I only played D&D until about a decade ago.
Yeah, you were like exclusively like Yeah, I wasn't actually. I played D&D and then like immediately I got like Top Secret, Boot Hill, and Gamma World, and then like Marvel Superheroes. Like I was never like I was polygamerous since I was like a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I played a lot of different things, and that comes up on the show. Every now and then because I will start like naming some old game or something that this is like that game, or this is like that setting. But I was latecomer to indie games. Like I can remember the Forge movement, and I was still playing like serious trad games like when the Forge movement came out, and I eventually made my way into indie games.
I think I got there like 3 years before you. But I mean, I wasn't even playing like super indie stuff really. I was playing like Fate, like Dresden, because I was really into the Dresden Files.
Yeah, I wasn't even doing that for a little while.
And I was into Spirit of the Century.
My biggest problem was I didn't have a game group that wanted to go indie.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge deal. Like my first real indie game was Fiasco. And then I like went crazy because I played Fiasco and I was like, this is amazing. What are the other actual role-playing games like? Like, let's do that. We can have a discussion in the after show about Fiasco as a full role-playing game. It is, but I'm talking about with advancement and character development and stuff like that. Anyway, non-gamer stuff. We mentioned it in the Bag Thulu commercial. I love me some bags.
Mm-hmm.
I have a collection of different bags that I buy. I'm into things like carry and EDC and stuff like that. Not so much like end of the world EDC, but more like carry all my productivity gear or my writing stuff. But I do love that, and I'm a Marvel comic nerd from the 80s. I had a serious stint in the 80s of a whole lot of Marvel comics. My favorite, of course, being the Claremont X-Men run, which we talk about from time to time. But I still have a couple fingers dabbling in the Marvel pool, so I do read some stuff. I'm not super current, but I'm not super far out. And I do like that. I actually kind of dig that. Robert.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you do around here?
Well, let's see. I am apparently a co-host.
Yes,
I joke about that.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I am.
You speak on the mics.
I speak on the mics.
You are
yes.
co-host.
I am the chat room warden. I like that term, warden. I monitor the chat room and bring things to the attention of the other two guys and things like that. And I am also techie / roadie kind of, although roadie doesn't really accurately describe it because I don't really take stuff on the road. For the most part, but I come down before these guys and I actually plug in the mixing board and get all the mic cables and the mic stand set up and all of that so that Chris can come down and just plug his laptop in and get the show started. So I get all that tech stuff out of the way first and foremost.
So here's the real secret to Bob. He's basically the next person in if one of us can't really show up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I am backup focal point for main topics.
Bob can do the one thing I can't. Bob can start the show.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like I can't.
Although it's been a while since it was explained to me, so I might have to have a refresher.
I can't start the show. I can turn on Audacity on my laptop and record a show.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I can't.
You can't stream a show.
No, I can't do that. By the way, we should not only get OBS set up on my machine.
But yeah, we will.
Yeah, we're going to do
set
it.
up on Bob's.
It's a thing. It'll happen.
It's totally a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, personality-wise, I mean, I know Bob's personality quite well. We've been friends forever.
Well, one of my things is I have I have a gift. I like to call it a gift. I consider myself a proofreading savant. I have no formal training in things like grammar, other than your basic high school, your regular school, elementary and high school stuff. I never did anything beyond that. But I can sit and read somebody's stuff, and I can get most of the grammar things, spelling, tense, context. If something looks odd, I will Google the shit out of it and figure it out. So that's where I get a lot of my grammar stuff from Google. But I can go through and I can proofread the hell out of stuff. And I've been working on expanding that out into deeper editing for things like, voice and different things like that. Because I want to edit more all the time. But proofreading is like my main gig for the different things that I have my fingers in.
That is literally like your superpower. Like
it is my
it
superpower.
Actually pains you. I've actually seen you do it. Like it pains you to read something when something's off.
I read articles because I am a consumer of pop culture, especially superhero stuff now. And I will read articles on websites, and I can't even begin to tell you how many articles I go in and I read, and I'm like, who allowed this to go out to the public without being proofread first?
There's
no vetting.
When we get later in the show, that is exactly how Bob gets tied to Gnome Stew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is exactly how Bob winds up as on Gnome Stew.
So yeah, that's a thing. Surprise to some people, maybe. I am not as outgoing in real life as I am on the show. And if you have been paying attention to the show since I started back in 167, you will note that I actually have gone from being super, 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 super quiet and almost never interjecting anything to being a more full-fledged member of the show, partly due to these guys, but also partly due to my comfort level with being in this little gig. But you catch me outside, I'm not the first person to walk up to somebody new at a convention and be like, hey, hi, how you doing? What are you playing? Blah, blah, blah. I'm more of a, what is that
introverted.
There's a thing, but there's that mix where you're an extroverted introvert, ambivert. Yeah.
Yeah, my first 15 years, I made the mistake of trying to make you more outgoing. I realized after 5 years ago, I was like, let's just let Bob be Bob.
And eventually, I've kind of not migrated. I've grown as a social person. Quite a bit from back in the day. Phil and I have known each other since '94, so we go back.
But there were even things like when we were in Mexico.
That's when I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah. There were even things like when we were in Mexico where we'd all be hanging out, and Bob's like, I'm going back to my room to take a nap. And I was like, yep, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's a point where Bob doesn't actually need to be socializing anymore. And he's like, I'm done. I'm going to go back to, And it's like, oh, yeah, we used to, old Phil would have been like, no, stay, whatever. Now I'm like, all right, have a good nap. We'll see you tonight for dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't call myself Old Man Logan for no reason at all. I am the old man of the group. I am 51 years old. And when I turned 40, I was like, oh my God, I'm old, I'm 40, and it freaked me out. And then the closer I got to 50, I realized age is something that happens. You either fight against it or you just let it go and ride the wave. And I decided when I was approaching 50 to ride the wave. So I said, that's it. When I turned 50, I started calling myself Old Man Logan on the show, and I am the old guy, grumpy, crotchety sometimes. Get off my lawn.
AARP card.
I actually have an AARP card.
He does.
He owns it, man.
Yep, I own it, and I keep forgetting to use it.
He gets crotchety every now and then, when he starts talking about something, and then you just look at him and be like, "Can you just add "get off my lawn" to the end of that statement?"
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
it's great.
So yeah.
All right. So you're since you're older than me, your chops as a gamer actually go back a little bit further than mine.
Yeah, I go deep into the well, baby. I still don't know for sure which version, white box or brown box of D&D, as I whack the microphone again, damn it. But I played one of those with my sister and my aunt, actually, which kind of surprises me thinking back on it, that my aunt actually was like, hey, you guys want to try this? Because she was not that kind of person that would kind of do that. But so I played some OD&D, and then I played a little bit of AD&D very briefly, but then the people that I hung out with in high school and for a while after, our thing was BECME, the Basic Expert Companion, We played the hell out of that for, 4 or 5, 6 years. A long-running campaign.
It's funny that you call it that because everyone else I know calls it BX.
We called it Beck Me back in the day because that's what the initials were for all the different sets.
Yeah.
And they've shortened it since to just BX.
You left off Masters and Immortals.
Well, yeah, because Masters and Immortals are the ones that were the weakest, especially Immortals.
Immortals is crazy.
Which is why most people nowadays, they just call it BX because Basic and Expert were where it was at. Most people didn't really care too much for Companion and above.
I actually liked Companion.
Companion was interesting.
Masters I wasn't as interesting. Companion was like when you got a kingdom.
Yeah.
Like that's the book that's like, well, now you're high enough level and here are the rules for building a castle and here are the rules for having a keep and here's some mass combat rules for taking an army out and going to kill a dragon.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Masters gets a little bit beyond that. Masters starts to get into like the edgy planar stuff, and then Immortals goes like completely crazy.
You're gonna be a god. That was some crazy stuff.
That's some crazy stuff.
I owned it, but we never actually.
Oh, I did it. Yeah. I converted one of my characters to Immortals.
Nice.
Is nuts. Anyway.
So yeah, that was our bread and butter for a while. I have also played most of the games that Phil has played, and most of them with Phil.
Yeah, Bob's been pretty much part of my gaming group since 1994. So
there was a bunch of other stuff prior to that. I believe it was the 3rd edition of Gamma World that I owned, the box set.
You have the gray one, right?
It's kind of grayish.
I don't think that's edition. I think that's 3rd printing.
It may be 3rd printing.
Because by 2nd or 3rd edition, they went like wacko and like put the face rip like table and stuff.
Yeah, that didn't have that, but it had the the modified map of the U.S.
Oh yeah,
and all
the one that
stuff.
you could make yourself.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's totally badass.
Yeah, so it did that. We did a brief test of like Gangbusters and Boot Hill.
Gangbusters.
Yeah, we touched all of those.
Played those things. Star Frontiers, Gangbusters.
But yeah, that was.
If Marvel made a box set, there was a period in my life where I had it.
And of late, especially when we started dipping into the story games thing, my thespian has now become quite almost legendary.
When it comes to playing Action Movie World, yes.
Yeah, no one wants to give. I mean, we just give Bob the thespian character.
Everyone's like, all right, we're going to play Action Movie World. All right, who's going to do what? And then all of a sudden, the thespian comes sliding my way.
It pretty much makes me cry every time we play. I laugh so hard.
Good times, good times.
All right, so that's a bit about us. Oh, Bob, non-gamer fact.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually a bigger Marvel comic nerd than Phil is.
Yes, you are.
I have been around a lot longer.
Bob was actually the one, you were the one when I got out that kept me up to speed. Like, you would tell me like all the storylines and I would be like, that's crazy town.
There was a time when I was following pretty much everything that Marvel was putting out in some way, shape, or form. And so there was a lot of consumption.
That's a lot of books.
I don't have the time to get anywhere near that much consumption ananymore. But
and you're a big Spider-Man guy.
I am a huge Spider-Man guy.
That's always been Bob's guy.
Always been, yeah.
Spidey used to be my favorite. Not as much anymore.
I was an X-Men kid. Like, I mean, I liked Spider-Man when I was young, and I still like Spider-Man now. But the first time I picked up a Claremont X-Men, I was like, these are my people.
That was some good stuff. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so what the hell is this show about?
Well, over the years, this show has been a number of different things. It's always had kind of a theme to it where it's been about analyzing games, because it's been a thing since I've been on it for forever, and I like to analyze games. It's always been a part of it, but it's been a bunch of other things at times. We'll talk about that when we talk about the history of the show, but today, why don't we start with the philosophy? So, Phil, why don't you tell everybody what the general philosophy of the show is?
Yeah, so if you listen carefully to the intro, it says that we're about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you,
and that's
our listeners.
Even a little outdated.
Yeah.
Because it should be gaming, game mastering, game design.
Yes. Which we'll talk about in a second. So let's break it down for a second. Gaming. We are gamers, and we play a host of different games. We play role-playing games, we play board games, we play card games, we play video games, apps, at different frequencies. I mean, there was a time where we were like seriously like board gaming, and then that kind of waned a little, and we've like role-played more, and there's times where we all screw around with an app game and a video game here and there. Bob and I are both big Minecraft guys, and
I have like 100 Steam games,
Yeah.
which is not really that many compared to other people, but
no, and especially after I think this week's sale, did you dip in?
I think I bought like one thing.
There you go. Game mastering, I think, has always been part of this show. Talking about game mastering and game mastering advice. And it's actually the thing when we talk about the history of the show, that's actually what got me, onto the show as a guest, and then what got me onto the show as a host was game mastering advice, because that is not only near and dear to my heart, but kind of like my bread and butter.
I mean, you wrote an article every other week for Gnome Stew for like years.
And 3 books.
Yep, that too. I mean, that was the start of it. That led to writing some books. And
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, that's not a thing we're gonna. I mean, I actually didn't put that in to talk about, but yeah, I think we'll probably delve into a little of that when we talk about Gnome Stew, and entertaining. That's actually a thing about this show that is important for the 3 of us, which is
it needs to be fun.
It does need to be fun. Like we actually, the 3 of us, look forward to coming here. And not only talking for people to listen and not only interacting with the chat room, but the 3 of us genuinely enjoy hanging out together.
Being a little ridiculous.
Yeah, we like to be a little ridiculous.
Yep.
So sometimes the show will be a little serious, and then sometimes one of us will get a little nutty.
Yeah,
It happens.
And then every once in a while, old man Logan has to.
Oh, are
take a
you
quick break.
fucking kidding? Hey, here's the thing. Talking about non-gaming things about old man
So
Logan.
Bob's old?
He's got a squirrel bladder. He's got a squirrel bladder, and sometimes Bob can't hold it.
So he had to go to the bathroom.
So Bob just got up in the middle of the show and went to the bathroom.
Better than peeing in the chair.
Game master out of that chair. Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
All right, so Chris, you touched on this. The show's expanded a little bit beyond just those 3 tenets. What else have we delved into?
Well, we are these days game designers, so we talk about game design.
We do actually like game design quite a bit.
Yeah, and Bob and me and you, we all design games of different varieties of games too. Role-playing games, card games, board games, dice games.
I mean, I pretty much work on role-playing games. Bob pretty much works on board, card games, things like that.
I do a little bit of everything.
And you do a little bit of everything. That's actually your other, that's kind of your superpower.
Did I do a little bit of everything?
Chris is like the jack of all. Chris is the backup guy for every guy. And gal. And folks. We'll get to that in
We'll get to
bit.
that too. Good job, by the way.
Thanks.
I don't make those mistakes as much as I used to.
I know, that one's fun. I actually did that on purpose.
Yeah, it's funny.
But it's true. Like, you are like the backup guy for everybody.
Do you know how funny it sounds when you say it and I don't?
It's
I think
awkward,
it's
right?
great.
Yeah. So game design is definitely a thing we do talk about. And we like talking to game designers as well.
We really do.
We're not an interview show.
Not this one.
Not this one. We have another show. We'll talk about the network in a bit where we do interviews. But we do like talking to game designers about game designy stuff.
Usually if you hear a game designer on the show, they are here to talk about a topic, and we tend to use whatever game they are currently kickstarting or working on as the prime example of that.
Yeah, we like that.
We also talk about publishing, because publishing is a thing that we do too.
Yep.
And I think it's fascinating. Like, publishing is interesting to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that publishing helped me with, I used to be the kind of person who would rail at like the price of a book.
Not so much anymore,
like,
right?
Oh, why does that book cost so much? And now I'm like, no, actually, I kind of understand why that book costs so much. Like, okay. I mean, it's like the reason why I'm not mad. Like, the DCC book is like $40, and I'm like, yeah, but that book's like 400 something pages, and it's chocked full of art.
Actually,
like,
a little cheap for $40.
Yeah, well, it is. It's mostly black and white.
Is
That's
it
why.
Is it a $50 book?
No, it's $40, $39.99.
Yeah, I mean,
on Goodman's site.
That's cool. I wonder.
I mean, the price goes up if you get any of the variant covers.
Yeah, I wonder how much it costs per. Here's the publishing
unit?
thing. Per unit to print that book.
About a fifth of that cost.
You would think it could be somewhere between a fifth and a tenth.
Well, you got to look carefully. That book is color cover, hardcover, and it's all black and white. Yes. All the artwork is black and white.
So is it $8 a unit, or is it like $5 a unit?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in the after show.
Yeah.
Anyway, we do like publishing, so we talk about that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get our game designer friends who are also publishers to talk about that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this show is a format. So if you're a new listener, what you can expect every week is that the show goes kind of like this. There's an opening.
Mm-hmm. Then we do what's going on.
Yep. Then we do any announcements that we might have, network-wise, Kickstarter, things like that.
Then the next part is the main segment, whatever that might be, which is a variety of things.
Yep, we'll talk about that. The main segment is the meat of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Then we do what's called the social media repository,
Yet that is things like, are we going to talk about that in specific later?
Well, we're going to talk about our community in a bit, but social media repositories where we pull things from our social media and we talk about them on the show.
Yeah, yep. And then there's the closing.
Yep. And then if you're watching us live on Twitch, as soon as the closing's done, we actually keep recording and do a thing called the after show.
And then any patron of Misdirected Mark Productions gets the after show.
Exactly. So if you're not a patron of the after show but are interested, or you are not sure if you want a patron and want to get a free sample of one of the things you'll get as a patron, come hang out on the Twitch. Hang out on the Twitch recording with us, and stay for the after show. The after show is we'll talk about it. It's a bit nutty.
It's a little nutty.
It's a little nutty, and it's us basically talking to the chat room for life, talking to each other. Sometimes we get a little soapboxy. Sometimes we do what I would regard as the world's worst AP.
This is not the world's worst AP.
It's fantastic. It's fantastically bad.
It's not Crash Man and Skill Monkey.
Oh, that's true. That is maybe Smash Man and Skill Monkey is the worst AP that's ever been done. We need another episode of that. Anyway, and then so we do the after show, which if you're just downloading the podcast, you will not hear the after show.
True.
You'll just hear the closing of the show.
Like I said, if you patron for $1 a month, you can get it.
Yeah. Now, Chris,
Plus a bunch of other things.
You mentioned main segments. What are some of the segments of the show?
Sure. So there's the garage where we talk about game mechanics. What's another one?
The workshop where we talk about game mastering advice.
The salon, which is where we talk sometimes about what we're playing, reading, watching, and then we try to relate it back to gaming.
Yeah, we don't do the salon very often
because we don't like to be spoilery.
The salon requires us we have to put up a whole bunch of spoiler alerts.
Like at some point, I would really like to do Rogue One.
Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like the cap can come off Rogue One.
Yeah, but we got to be getting close to that.
Yeah.
And what's the last one?
The last one's the bar. The bar is this segment, for instance. Yep. The bar is it is the defy danger of segments on the show.
Nice.
When you don't know what to do, we stick it in the bar.
Yeah, because we can drink and talk about whatever.
Absolutely.
All right. You want to tell me about the community now?
Yeah, let's talk about the community, and then we'll be heading over to the chat room for life for questions, because I actually see some questions coming along. All right, so one of the cool things, and I think one of the things we're really proud about on this show, as well as on the network, is we are proud of our community.
I love the community.
It's awesome.
It is an excellent group of gamers. We have had the opportunity over the years to actually meet a large number of listeners. Now, I know our download numbers. We have not met. I don't think we've met 10% of them yet.
No.
But we've met a number of you, and they're fantastic.
They are.
Like, I love them.
Me too.
In fact, not only do I love them, we actually hang out like at conventions with a lot of I don't want to say our listeners, with people who listen to our show.
Yeah, they're our friends.
Yeah,
man.
they are actually our friends. One of the things I love about the community is that it is a high signal, low noise.
A lot of good stuff.
Like, there is not any ridiculous fighting. There is not any problems with being inclusive or anything. Like, it is a really positive. It is a really positive community, no matter which platform we're on. And talking about platforms, we are on Facebook. We do have a Twitter account. But really, if you want to get to the heart of what we're doing community-wise, we have a G+ community.
Yes.
That is, you start at the G+ community. You will, we put information out on other things, but discussions pretty much happen in the G+ community.
And that G+ community currently has 365 members. So, I mean, it's not a huge community, but it's not a small community either. It's a very sizable community. We talk there about a lot of gaming topics. Phil will drop nuggets in there about pretty much on a weekly basis. He tries to get there every day to talk. I check in there to see if there's something to respond to every day.
Even if it's something I can just comment on. And a lot of times I'll put the what I'm working on for the show notes. I'll toss that in there for some ideas.
Yep. We have the healthy living weight loss challenge thing that we've been doing for over a year now. It originally started as me trying to get a bunch of people to help me get motivated to lose a bunch of weight for my wedding, which was pretty effective. I actually lost 16, 17 pounds. And then we just kept it up. We tried to change a little bit so that it would be more about how can we all just keep each other staying healthy. We have a Patreon campaign that has 74 patrons currently. And with that comes our Slack community. And our Slack community is a ton of fun too. That is the behind the scenes thing where you can just, the Slack room for life is there. People chat with each other all the time.
Yeah, the Slack room for life is like a bunch of 74 of our listeners constantly talking to each other.
Yes. Plus all the hosts are in there too.
Yeah,
of the different shows, the 10 shows that we have.
Yep, we'll get to that after we talk to the chat room.
And this show we run live on Twitch, and we have the chat room for life. Which, hey, chat room for life, what's up? And that's somewhere between 12 and 20 people that show up every week.
Yeah, it fluctuates week to week. Again, high signal to noise. Although, if it gets spammy in there, the banhammer, Robert Everson,
The Fist of the Queen.
Fist of the Queen.
Yeah, he'll drop it. He's occasionally we get somebody wandering into the room and getting a little snippy, and then bam, gone.
And then there's the occasional rambling or tangential topics.
I don't think we've ever had to take. I don't think we've ever had to take out
action,
like a regular listener or anything. It's almost always been somebody who's wandered in and been like, "What's this community about?" And then like starts like in, and it's like, yeah, you got to go. Anyway, again, high signal, low noise. All right, hey Bob, we're gonna take a break.
Yeah.
We're gonna hit the chat room. We're gonna talk about something called Rainbow World.
Right after
that, and then we'll get into talking about the network. So tell us what's going on in that chat room for life. They seem busy.
What a great crowd. We're up to 18 currently in the room.
Having a good old time.
Having a good old time.
So I know there's questions. Hit
let
us.
me hit you with some of the basics here. MM Mike D42. Mr. Mike, yes. I can read.
You can.
I can read good.
You proof really well.
Yes. What recording equipment do you use?
So my favorite microphone to use for recording is the SM58. I love the SM58s. That's what me and Bob have for this show every week. Phil, you have this is my second favorite microphone. It's the ATX 2100, I think it's called.
Yeah, the
or ATR.
The Ars Technica, right?
Ars Technica.
Yep.
I think it's ATR ATX 20. I forget exactly. 2100.
It's a good one.
I have it saved in my my Amazon thing so that I can buy them for people when we need to buy them for people. And I do, like, Misdirected Mark has its own monetary bank accounts and things like that. We use that to buy people equipment when they need it that are in the network. So that's the microphone that I tend to buy for everyone. Currently right here we have a Mackie, I believe it's a Mackie Pro FX 12 mixer. That is the one that we've been using for 5 years. It's stood up very well.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken it to Gen Con with me. I've taken it to a bunch of different conventions with me.
It's not small.
It's not small. We have a Zoom H4 that we record into. That's what the podcast gets recorded on. We use Macs for our show notes and for the stream at this point. I'm not sure what kind of webcam that is.
Oh, that's a Logitech 2 gig HD webcam.
Mm-hmm. So that's the camera we use.
And we run everything streaming through OBS, right?
Yes, that is the software that we use. Yes.
OBS is that's
Open
an acronym
Broadcast
for Open Broadcast Software.
Yep. And that's pretty much it. Like,
there we go.
I mean, we have pop screens and mic stands and all that good stuff too. But
yeah.
we have. I run the soundboard is off of my iPad.
Yes.
I mean, we're very Mac heavy here these days, which is a different thing than we used to be.
And if we bring somebody on the show, we wire them in through Hangouts, which we then fire up through an iPad and push them through the mixer as well.
Yep, that's exactly how we do it.
Yeah, that's our gig.
So
that's our rig.
That's all of it, actually.
Yep. It's if you come and watch the Twitch stream or when we put them up on YouTube, you can actually see the tangled mess all over the table.
Yeah, it probably drives Phil crazy, but it's not
I don't
really
care.
a better way to do it.
I mean, there could be, but like then.
If we could have a more permanent setup, I would have this stuff.
If we had a permanent setup, I would have all this shit locked down.
Yeah.
With like cable ties and stuff like that. But we take it apart and put it away every night because the table that we play on is also the table that we game on.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So it has to get
the table that Phil's family does laundry on.
correct.
Yep.
Yes. So yeah, we don't leave the gear out. It actually gets packed up every night. Okay. Any other questions? I mean,
there's a few other. I'm going to actually skip around a little bit through the questions that I
it's fine.
noted and save some of them for later because I think they'll fit in better with the thing.
Sounds good.
Mo, the Canadian God of Gaming, he wants to know about our credentials. What right do you guys have to tell me how to design my games?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see.
I have as much right as anybody else on the face of the planet to tell you how to design games.
Yeah. I mean,
are you asking me why I feel that I may or may not be an expert at this?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We've been doing it for a while. So here's why I think that I have a standing to talk about this. I've conducted over 80 interviews with different game designers, and I've picked all their brains about their game design. So if you think about it, I've actually had basically a course in game design by talking to other people who have made games. Because really, what are college classes other than going to lectures to listen to people talk about whatever they're lecturing on?
Yep.
I've had actually the opportunity where I can actually ask them specific questions. And furthermore, with that, when I prepare for those interviews, I study their games.
Yes.
So I've studied their games, I've analyzed their games, I've taken classes in critical analysis, so I actually know how to break down information and understand and analyze it. And I've been doing it for the better part of 6 years now. So if you think about it that way, I actually have quite a good base for doing that.
Absolutely.
So if you're asking me my cred, there's my cred.
Let's see. I'll put mine on the table. 30 years of gaming across a very diverse set of role-playing games has given me a broad range of understanding. I have, as a game designer, I came up the ranks slowly, doing freelance work for other companies before I branched out onto my own, and then eventually spent a few years designing games. In terms of game mastering advice, where I will stake my biggest claim, my credentials include many articles, many thousands of words on Gnome Stew, 3 Annie-nominated books, 1 Origins nominated book, and I think several Golden Geek nominated books, all on GMing advice, as well as now, what is it? 3? Am I 3 years into this show?
Yes.
So 3 years of weekly podcasting about game mastering advice, as well as a second year's worth of game mastering advice on another podcast.
You're actually into your 4th year of podcasting.
Yeah, plus, add 1 more year because of pandas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've about 5 years. Hour for hour, I'm going to say this, and I don't have anything to defend it on, but word for word, hour for hour, not too many more people have talked about game mastering advice than I have.
It's true.
Even when you think like Robin and Ken, they spent more time designing games than actually writing about game mastering advice. Mm-hmm. And I certainly don't have the game design chops they have. But for game mastering advice, I'm in the top 5%.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I would not argue that, yeah.
Anything else? I hope that answers the question.
I think it does.
Yeah, I feel now like all flush and red from doing that. I feel like a little embarrassed about saying that, but yeah,
somebody asked.
Somebody asked. And it's legit. Why are you listening to the show? What do we know about, that stuff? Well, that's what we know about.
Hopefully that, and hopefully because it's entertaining.
We're going to hit this one more time before the end, right?
Sure. Oh, what?
No, I mean...
Yeah, we got one of these on the way out.
Yeah. Give us one more, though.
Right, so I'm going to do one more. I'm going to indulge because I've been asked, why do I hate PB&J?
Okay, why do you... Bob,
yes, Robert, what the hell is wrong with peanut butter and jelly?
All right, to be totally serious, I don't hate peanut butter and jelly. I personally feel that peanut butter and jelly don't go together.
Now,
I hit the damn...
Oh, you know what your problem is?
Yes. My pop screen thing is pointing the wrong way.
Yeah, your pop screen thing is down. Your pop screen thing needs
Normally this is farther away from me too, but because my sound was really low today, I had to pull it in closer.
And because we're making you talk more today.
Yeah,
talkie.
Oh.
So yeah, PB&J.
Now, when you say J for jelly, do you mean just grape jelly or do you also mean like strawberry jam?
Well, first of all, the only true jelly or jam is grape. All the others are just imposters. So personally, I'm a jam fan. I prefer grape jam over grape jelly. I like the consistency better. I think it's a better thing.
Jam's more fruity.
Jam, good stuff.
Strong opinions from Bob.
So,
react, chat room.
Yes,
react.
Peanut butter belongs with chocolate, in my opinion. The peanut butter, it works best when it's married with chocolate in equal proportion.
Now, I can't argue peanut butter and chocolate because peanut butter and chocolate is righteous as all hell, and so peanut butter chocolate is like actually my favorite. Pretty much anything flavor in terms of candy, confectionery, ice cream, things like that. But peanut butter and jelly, like straight up legit. Peanut butter and Fluffernutter.
Not so much.
Hell, man, peanut butter on a burger, man, a sticky burger, totally works.
Nah, I don't know about that.
That one, I'll tell you what, that one was a stretch for me too. That one actually took me a while to actually try.
You're a jamist.
I am not a jamist.
Totally a jamist.
I like what I like.
You should be
But
polyjamery.
We should be polyjammering.
I mean, I like grape jelly, but I mean, 9 times out of 10, I make a peanut butter and jelly with strawberry jam.
And people are wondering what Fluffernutter is. Fluffernutter is like marshmallow white stuff.
Is that not
it's marshmallow fluff?
Is that not a nationwide thing?
Maybe it's not.
I think it is a nationwide thing. It's just not as common.
Fluff is that whipped marshmallow stuff. If you've never had that with peanut butter, like wow. I mean, look, it's super sweet. Like I'm now too old to eat something that sweet and not like go into shock from it. But oh man, it's good.
Yeah. No, Mo, you're thinking fluffer. Just fluffer, not fluffernutter.
Well, that's different.
A different thing.
That's very different.
So my feelings on peanut butter. I'm peanut butter is a fine thing. I expect it to be with chocolate, but I will eat peanut butter cookies because they're sweet and
did he not? I can't remember. Did he eat the peanut butter
I did
jelly
eat the
cookies?
peanut butter cookie and peanut butter and jelly cookie actually at Nikki's house.
Nikki's
Yes,
mom
I did
made-
eat it.
Nikki
and
is
I
in the
enjoyed
chat
it.
room yelling like,
Yes.
"Make him admit it. He admitted it at my house."
Now, for our 101 listeners, there is a running joke about Bob's dislike for peanut butter and jelly, which is why the chat room is making him. Why the chat room is making him confess.
So, by the way, Mo Two Snow is the Canadian god of gaming. If you didn't know,
Yes.
Nikki's our IT help desk person. The queen is Senda.
You're.
Oh, is that later?
It's later.
Yeah.
I mean, not all of them were in there, but some of that was in there.
I'm just hitting that right now. We can hit it again later, but
Okay.
I mean that would be confusing if you didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on with the rest of the topic.
This ad is brought to you by. Well, this ad is Rainbow World, and it's actually it's at the end of the ad. This ad is brought to you by.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
People pay us money for this, right?
It's a good thing I can edit this, huh?
You're not going to edit
No,
this.
I am going to edit this because people paid for it. This ad is brought to you by WoW Games and our friend Matt Bonhoff. It is Rainbow World, so here we go. Taste the rainbow of history with Rainbow World.
Rainbow World, listen up, folks. Let me be completely clear. Rainbow World is a world-building game to be used as a jumping-off point for any game system.
And it uses Skittles.
Chris? Yes, it uses Skittles. The candy, Skittles. It takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play, requires 50 index cards, writing utensils, a container.
And a bag of Skittles.
Yes, and a bag of Skittles, Chris.
I really, really like Skittles.
I mean, Skittles are good. I mean, they get me like too many of them, and I get that thing going on in my
Good.
mouth.
Good. That's like saying chocolate is just good. That's like saying Spider-Man Homecoming was just good.
All right. Settle down. Take a deep breath. They're good. Skittles are good.
That's not really better.
All right. Can I keep going?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. This game is about facts and events.
And candy. Don't forget the candy.
Chris, I know it's got Skittles in it. Let me get to that part. And candy. Shh. You create facts and get rewarded with candy. I mean, seriously, let's just stop for a second. How cool is that? You make a fact and get candy for it. Like, I think that's awesome. Okay. And then you create events and eat the candy. So you not only earn candy, but you get to eat it by doing stuff. The color of the candy lets you know what kind of events you're creating. You're not going to interrupt me this time?
What? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was thinking about eating Skittles.
Oh, I'll finish this. I'll do this. Of course you were. Well, that's Rainbow World by WoW Games and our friend Matt Bonhoff. You can find Rainbow World on DriveThru RPG or by clicking on the link in the show notes.
Can you use M&Ms or Reese's Pieces?
No.
They're not the same colors, man.
Yeah.
You're going to mess up the system.
The colors actually matter in the game.
It's awesome.
I read through it. When you go to eat a candy, the kind of event that you make is dependent on that candy that you eat.
Yeah.
The color of the candy that you eat. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
you couldn't use M&Ms because they're not the same colors.
So what happens if I just I love purple Skittles. If I just want to eat the purple.
I can't remember offhand.
All right,
I
that's
have to go look it
still
up.
pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
So that's Rainbow World. Let's get back to it.
Back to the show.
So the network.
Yeah, let's talk about the network for a second. If you are just stumbling onto this podcast, we need to be clear. There is the Misdirected Mark show, which you are listening to right now. There is the Misdirected Mark network, which
Misdirected Mark Productions.
Yes, which is actually a whole network of shows, of which this is the flagship show. flagship in that it has the same name. But we have a whole bunch of other shows, which include Down with D&D.
That's our D&D show that me and Sean are on that has evolved into more of a, we discuss D&D, like the game itself and how to play it, like what some techniques to use, things like that.
And by Sean, you mean Sean Merwin.
Sean the Mad Wizard Merwin.
Yep. And we'll talk a little bit about Sean at the end of the show. What else?
Threats from Gallifrey with Garrett Crow and his crew of correspondents. There's also Advantage to Insight with Wayne and sometimes Alex. And Wayne tends to talk to a lot of different D&D folks. He did a whole series with the different Adventurers League administrators.
There's Pandas Talking Games, which is our show that looks at various gaming topics through the lens of one-shots and campaigns, and is co-hosted by myself and Senda, who we'll talk a little bit more about when we get into terminology. We've got Cypher Speak with Darcy and Troy. They talk about all things Cypher.
They do, in fact.
They are big Cypher players, and Darcy is plugged into the...
well, she works for Monty Cook Games now.
She works for Monty Cook Games now. If you want your Cypher knowledge, like, that's where you go to get it dropped.
Yep. So then there's the Gnome Cast. The Gnome Cast is these days hosted by Angela Murray from one of the gnomes. It's basically she gets together with a gnome or two and they talk about a topic, usually one of the previous article or set of articles, but sometimes other things. It's a very short show. It usually only lasts somewhere around 20 minutes. There's also the Streets of Avalon with the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars. And it's really that show is the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars play games. Because we're going to be playing other games other than just the Streets of Avalon. But that is Brett Belinsky from Gaming and BS. That is Kevin Lovecraft, who is he's friends with us, friends with Brett and them. Yep. He's also been on some of the Gauntlet.
Yeah, he's a big Gauntlet. He's a Gauntleteer.
Yeah, pocket size play. Yep. There's Emily from She's a Super Geek. She is on that show. She's currently running the game that we're playing now called Avanti. There's me. And...
Tom.
And there's Tom Flanagan. I knew I missed somebody. I don't have a list. I should have written a list down. Tom Flanagan from the Knights of the Night, who has been doing the AP thing longer than pretty much anybody else I know. Because the Knights of the Night, they play all sorts of games, and they're back up and running and playing all sorts of cool stuff.
And our last show in the network is Hobbs and the Friends of the OSR. That's pretty much a show about graph paper and tables and funny dice. No, I'm kidding. It is...
Dudes on a Map?
No. Theater of the Mind, not Dudes on a Map.
I mean, they sometimes play with dudes on a map because they play on Roll20 sometimes.
But blue graph paper. Blue and white graph paper.
That's Hobbs runs his games on Roll20 with really pretty maps that he makes himself.
Yeah?
Yeah, with
dynamic... I like to tease Hobbs.
I know you do.
But it's that's our OSR show. So if you want to, if you're into the OSR scene, Hobbs is pretty well connected, man. Like
their community is over 300 members already.
Yeah, and when we say friends, like Hobbs got a lot of friends in the OSR community,
like publishers and game designers and things like that.
Depending on what flavors you're into, I think we got you covered pretty much.
Yeah,
we do. I mean, game wise, we have you covered, and we're going to talk about our games, what we like in a few seconds. But
yeah, can I just say one more thing about Hobbs? So the premise of that show is that he gets together with a couple of friends, a friend or two, and they talk about stuff in the OSR, like games they've been playing and a topic. There's also another series that they do called Hex Talk.
Nice.
So if you want to learn more about how hex crawls work and emergent storytelling works, it's a great series to listen to.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
We were just asked by the chat room to define the term OSR.
No.
Old school Renaissance.
I mean, just define what it means.
The old school Renaissance.
Yeah, defining what that actually means is a beehive. Man.
I will I will use the most common definition, which is oversimplistic. But it is the old school Renaissance is the idea of playing games the way they were originally played in the back in the day. It includes things such as retro clones of existing of the 1974, the BX versions, AD&D. It includes those things, but it also includes newer things like DCC, Lamentations. Chris is right. Like, there's no great definition, but think the philosophies of old school gaming. And there's actually a great document, The Primer on Old School Gaming. Have you ever read it?
Yeah.
That's a good start.
Although I would say just go listen to Hobbs and Friends of the OSR if you want to know what OSR means.
You know what? Just pop onto Hobbs's group and be like, hey, define this thing.
Yeah, tell us what it's all about.
Do what Phil does. Define it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. Yeah.
So the next thing that I guess we want to talk about when it comes to the network. So we talk about the Queen now and again.
We do.
I call her Queenie. That's Senda.
Yeah.
Senda and me, like, we're partners in this thing.
Yeah, and Senda is the other co-host from She's a Super Geek.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's also the other co-host on Pandas Talking Games.
Yeah. Like, I often don't make decisions without asking her first, and she usually throws things at me, and we decide if they're good things or not good things to implement.
Yeah, and as the network goes, it basically runs like this. Chris and Senda are partners in managing the network. Each show is responsible for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Each show is produced by the hosts of that show. So I write for this show. I write for Pandas, and then each one is edited by the co-hosts. You will pop in to edit. In fact, that's actually how you lure people on the show. Is you offer to edit in the beginning, and then you kick it back to them.
That's not actually true.
No, I know.
So I edit a lot of these things, actually. So
yeah,
I mean, I edit Hobbs, I edit the Gnome Cast, I edit the Streets of
You
Babylon.
edit Pandas for a while.
I did, and I still do whenever it needs to be done.
I mean, to be clear, we do not edit this show, which we edit a very light edit on this show.
This show is more like live radio at this point. So that's a thing. Okay, so that is pretty accurate. Like, people are responsible for their own show, and we actually missed a show in there. It's a very, very new show, and it only comes out monthly, and it's called Bonestone and Obsidian.
Yeah.
It's our Dark Sun podcast with Robert Aducci.
Yeah,
and
sorry,
Wayne.
Robert.
No, it's okay.
There was a little thing in the past about how clear we were on, is that a network show or...
Yeah.
But welcome aboard.
Yeah, it fits into our D&D line of shows.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about the history of the show.
Yeah.
So this thing started over 5 years ago in March. I think March of 20...
Yep. Yeah, we celebrate every March.
We used to. We don't anymore. I didn't this last March.
Yeah, we did the one March before that though. We got
we had cake and everything.
We got pretty drunk.
We
actually.
celebrate in March because you and I both have birthdays in the middle.
And the show turns about the same. Yeah,
so it's a good time to celebrate.
It's a confluence of reasons to celebrate.
It's early in March, about 6 years ago is when or 5 years ago is when this thing started. So there are kind of 3 eras to the show.
Uh-huh. So if you're delving into our backlog, this is kind of our, like, if you delve into the backlog and are like, what the hell is going on in the show? This is where we're going to explain to you the 3 eras of the show.
Uh-huh. So the first one was when it was me and Mark Napick.
Yep.
He was the original host of the Misdirected Mark podcast.
And how many episodes was that?
150? Was it 100? No, it was 100. It's 104. You started your reign of awesomeness in episode 105.
Okay, so that'll be our first defining mark. So episode 1 through 104, the Chris and Mark era.
Yeah, and that had emergent fiction that occurred that took on a life of its own. So that is the first thing.
Yeah, so sometimes you will hear references to the house misdirected.
Uh-huh.
Because the house was a multi-dimensional, semi-sentient thing inside the fiction.
And we still reference it as such sometimes.
We do. And there was a whole storyline that occurred those first 2 years.
Yeah, the first year it was less of a storyline. We would just make up stuff to go from room to room, like riding around on segways and things like that, which was fun. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it. But we would talk a lot about jamming advice, and there was a lot of me yelling at Mark.
Yes, Mark was really caustic, and you were like the voice of reason.
Yes, that is pretty accurate.
Yeah. You were also the more indie player, and Mark was very much a traditional player, and still to this day plays D&D.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep, that's accurate. So then we had Mark stepped away.
Mark had a baby.
And he's like, I can't do this anymore.
He's like, this is hard.
And I went to my first choice, which was Phil, and Phil said yes, which I was very happy about. And
it was very romantic. It was a summer day. Chris got down on one knee. No, it was more like, dude, you want to be on the show?
I'm gonna eat a Skittle and say that's not how that works.
Aw.
That is not the story that
That's
occurred.
how I remember it. You have terrible memory anyway. You don't remember how it was. I remember.
I remember images and events that way, and that's not what happened.
No. So
I couldn't tell you what you said to me. Like, you could have said, as I was beating at you with a sword, like, but I love you, Chris. Don't kill me. I'll be on your show.
No, actually, I think what happened was, as Mark started gaming with the baby, and I was a fan of the show.
Uh-huh.
I had been on the show for an interview once or twice, and then I had just been on a couple times casually, and then I had been listening to the show and like listening to Mark, like he had hit that part where like he had stopped sleeping.
Yeah.
And he was kind of coming apart at the seams. And I remember I texted you and I was like, hey, if you ever need somebody to sit in on the show, like let me know, because I can, I'd be happy to do it. And then when Mark was like, I can't do this anymore, you were like, hey, about that sitting in on the show thing. Like,
would you like to be a permanent host of the Misdirected Mark podcast?
Right. And we did the first shows. Our first shows were not done face-to-face.
No,
we would do them by Hangouts because we live across town from each other.
Yep.
And then we eventually were like, no, we should just do this face-to-face. This is stupid.
Yeah. So we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We picked a night. We started recording together.
So
we killed the fiction.
Starting in episode 105 and going till episode what is it, Bob? 167.
167.
Is it 166 before Bob, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from 105 to 166 is the just Chris and Phil.
That is the transitional time.
Yeah, that's in there. You will hear things. That is where we were doing news at the bar. Because you and I were fairly plugged into what was going on. So
I love doing news too.
We were doing news. I brought the garage.
Where we would break down mechanics.
Right, that was my contribution, and we did some of my favorites are in that span. 150 is the Bard episode.
Yep.
Where we compared all the bards, including the greatest of all bards, the Rocker Boy.
Which is where Rocker Boys and Vending Machines came from.
Yeah.
And he nominated Rocker Boys and Vending Machines.
The Encumbrance episode.
Is that in there too?
Yeah, I think so. I'm super proud of the Encumbrance episode.
The Encumbrance episode's in there.
Because the Encumbrance episode is... I started writing that episode, I was like, this topic is stupid. Like, this mechanic's stupid. And by the time I got to the end of describing, like, what the purpose of Encumbrance was, I was like, wait, this mechanism's actually meaningful.
It is.
I don't always like how it's implemented.
Yeah, it's usually implemented poorly, but
I like what it means. Anyway.
I shouldn't say usually anymore. There's people have been getting better at it.
Yeah, there's better ways to do it. And we started getting deeper on topics.
We really did.
Like, we stopped doing simple game mastering advice, and we started really digging deeper.
Yeah, like, it wasn't just like... We got past the idea of...
10 ways to make your combat encounter sexier.
Not just that, but, like, you should have a conversation to fix your problem. Like, how to have the conversation.
Yeah.
What things you should actually be talking about. Like, real actionable stuff aside from have a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right. So that's the Chris and Phil era, which starts with us on Hangouts and ends with us face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, there's one other important change that happened during the Chris and Phil era.
Is that when we started
That's when
live?
you started live.
So the reason we started recording live was because we blew a recording.
We wanted to have a backup.
Right. We actually lost a recording of a show one night, and we were like, oh, man, if we recorded this thing to Hangouts on air, we could pull the audio if anything ever goes wrong.
Yep.
So we did it, and then people showed up.
Yeah.
And then we were like, oh, like now this is a thing.
It's totally a thing.
Right.
And the chat room for life was born.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't christened that yet.
No, because when it started, it was that weird Hangouts thing where people could ask questions, and it was really like, it was painful. And then we put one up on the website, and that was...
We tried a few things.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we hit episode 167.
And then we brought Bob in.
Yeah, I sat actually watching you guys do a live recording upstairs in the kitchen one night, and you seemed to be having some difficulties at times keeping up with the people that were in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, look, if you guys want, I can come sit in with you and monitor the chat room, and then when something comes up, I can be like, oh, hey, here's the thing from the chat room, and then you guys don't have to eyeball it. You can just do the show. And
yeah, we were like, yeah, let's do that.
Let's do this.
I think I said yes, please.
Yeah, because I mean, it's hard. Like, I'm watching the chat room, but I can't keep interacting with it and keep doing the segment. So yeah, that's actually like, yeah. So that was fantastic.
And thus, the golden age of MMP was born.
That's when we started talking more about game design, because Encoded was a thing that was ramping up.
Yeah, and Bob was also a member of Encoded, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
We threw the weight loss challenge in there at that point in time.
We did.
Which was a big community building thing.
It was.
That was a big thing for the community.
Yeah, and we just kept doing these deeper topics, like taking stuff apart. And I love taking stuff apart, too. So, I mean, it's been... I haven't had as much time to do my analytical breakdowns of stuff because, I have a lot more...
network to run?
Yeah.
Yeah, some games to design?
That, too.
Yep. Yep, that's okay because I like doing it. So I've carried on that tradition, and I love breaking stuff apart.
Yep, and reading your notes is almost as good for me because I can just be like, yep, that's what I would have done, so...
Yeah, I mean, occasionally, like, you usually come in and, like, punch in a few extra things, But most of the time we're like kind of dead on track.
So that's where we are today.
Yeah, that's and we continue the golden era.
And I miss the fiction. I really do.
You do. That's why I indulge you with the opening of the show now.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Mo just made an excellent point. He said, "This is the Silver Age. The Golden Age is yet to come."
Oh man, what
nice.
happens next? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay.
We'll find out, won't we?
I mean, it is fair. It is the Silver Age because Bob is old, right? Like,
Get off my lawn!
That's funny.
all right. So
I thought it went the other way in comics. Like it was golden, then silver, then bronze, then steel, or whatever.
I don't remember. Steel means that we have to have a lot of pouches.
Murdering each other?
Yeah, murdering each other and wear a lot of pouches.
That was the Iron Age, I think.
Iron.
Age?
Oh yeah. Is there a difference between Iron and Steel Age?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
It's
but
probably called
pouches.
Iron Age.
Lots of pouches.
So why don't we talk about games?
Yeah, games that we talk about in the show.
Yeah.
So if you go back through the backlog for any reason, one of the things you're going to learn is that the games that we talk about have a lot to do with the games that we're playing. While we do like talking about different games, we tend to get into different games because not only are we doing the show, but we actually all game together. In fact, we actually game 2 different campaigns in the course of a month with each other. So the games that we're playing tend to get talked about on the show. So in some ways, if you go into our backlog, our show's like a geological record of games that we've played. Like you will find different eras. Like there is a Fate era. There is a Dungeon World era. There is a Night's Black Agents smaller era because we played it for a shorter time. But you will find all of them interspersed in here. So what are the games that we're currently into? Like, what are the things that you can still expect to hear us talk about on the show?
Dungeon World.
Dungeon World is one of our favorites. Chris ran a 2-year-long campaign called the Airy Peaks, which will eventually one day be a product, which we are in love with. And so we still love playing Dungeon World. I have written the Legacy Weapon for Dungeon World. So yeah, Dungeon World is not a thing that I don't think we'll escape anytime soon.
Yeah.
Blades in the Dark is something that I'm currently running. We're all playing, so you're going to hear that for a while.
Masks, because we're playing it.
Yeah,
And I think we finally just now gotten into it.
I feel like we're hitting our stride because it's feeling really good.
5th edition D&D.
Yeah, it's very much.
It's very much. I mean,
that's you.
It's very me. Bob is playing right now with me too, so there's that too.
Are you guys playing 5th?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you guys were playing BX.
Nope, we're playing 5th edition D&D.
Oh, that's now less interesting. I thought
It's
you guys
actually
were,
really good.
Oh, I thought you guys were playing BX. I was like, oh, that's so badass. You guys are playing like retro or something. But no, all right, you just
No, we're playing.
All right, that's
5th
fine.
edition.
Whatever.
Whatever he says. Whatever he says. The crew is great.
No, I don't doubt the crew is great. I just thought it was more exciting when you were playing BX.
Well, and we're also playing a bunch of Powered by the Apocalypse games.
We basically love Powered by the Apocalypse
We
games.
talk about them, yeah.
Yeah,
so.
we really can't get enough of them.
So what are some of the past games that we really enjoyed?
We don't play it as much anymore, but we seriously had a good time with Swords Without Master.
I love that game.
That game is never going to grow old.
Yeah,
I will
and
play
it's
that
not,
anytime.
Yeah, we'll wind up actually coming back and playing it at some point. And I actually will play it pretty much at any con.
Yeah.
That I can get. And if Rob from the Toronto area gamers is running it, I will totally play it.
Absolutely.
Night's Black Agents is a game that we played.
I still think that game's perfect.
There's no reason not to think it's perfect.
That game does what it's supposed to do, and it does it so well.
And in fact, if you're wondering why we call that the perfect game, go through the backlog. There is an episode where Chris and I talk about why Night's Black Agents is amazing.
And I think we had Ken Hyde on one time to talk about it too.
That's a separate episode.
Yep.
But yes, you can actually hear both.
Yeah. I think our reasoning is very good for why it is.
Yep. Savage Worlds is there was a period when I first came on the show, I was still playing a lot of Savage Worlds. I still like that game. I like.
It's a fun game.
Yeah,
I think it's fun.
Fate.
I really enjoy Fate.
I do too. I always enjoy Fate. If anything, I think there's probably a slight shift from Fate to Accelerated. I think all of us are kind of starting to lean a little towards
I want to play
Accelerated.
some more Accelerated. I haven't played enough yet.
It's the Dresden Files version of Accelerated. That is what makes Accelerated really great to me. I mean, I also really like the Three Rocketeers version of Accelerated.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a good.
Three Rocketeers
It's a really
is very
solid
well
game.
PK did a nice job.
Yep. You can say bingo now. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Yep. past editions of D&D.
Yeah, we talk about that because we played a lot of it.
We did. You played. One of your very pivotal campaigns was a 4th edition game. I had several 3rd edition games. Plus, I played like D20 Modern and shit like that.
I played tons of 3rd edition too. So
yeah,
I played a
lot.
year-long 4th edition campaign.
We did. Yep, Bob ran a 4th edition campaign. Corporation is a game I talk about from time to time. Bob and I played for a while.
Oh, so good.
Delightful English romp of a game. Underground is another game that we talk about.
Yeah, it's actually really important to us because we went from it took us into game design.
We were playing Underground, and then we really wanted to play Fate, and so we made a Fate version of Underground, and it was the first thing that Chris and I ever collaboratively designed. And it was the thing that was like, hey, it doesn't suck working with you. Like, it was actually really enjoyable. You want to do something else?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how we got started. It's also important for me because Underground has, for me, something that it gets carried directly through to the game I'm designing right now, Hydro Hackers, which is the idea of neighborhood.
Yep.
So Underground's actually like a super important game for me. I also think it's one of the most underrated games of the 1990s. I think that when people make lists of awesome games of the 1990s, they often forget Underground, and that is actually a shame.
I love the presentation of that book.
The presentation of that book was radically, nowadays people would be like, oh yeah, that seems pretty normal, but for 1994, that book was incredible. The artwork in that book is incredible.
I don't even know if it seems normal now. Like, that was a really great layout.
It was an expensive book too because the core rulebook was full color glossy.
Yeah, like that's expensive, but a really cool book.
Yeah, the supplements weren't.
The
supplements were black and white.
So many of us live in indie land, right? Like, there's not a lot of money for making pretty books.
Yeah,
like you got to do what you can with what you got.
That was Mayfair money. Like that was.
Yeah.
All right. So we're always looking at new games, and Mo in the chat room actually called it. There are some that are on the horizon you're going to start hearing us talk about.
Yes.
The first one is Dungeon Crawl Classics.
That's true.
I've gotten the bug. I haven't played it yet, but I'm messing around with it. So yes, you're going to start hearing some things about it on the show.
So many people are going to die.
So many people are going to to die in the funnel.
That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
What's the other game? There's another game
there's a couple, actually.
There are a couple. What's the next one?
I'll talk about. I'd rather let you talk about this one that you have written down. But for me, Star Trek.
Oh yeah,
the new Star Trek game has caught my attention as a game system.
I've heard a couple people now say that Modifius did a real nice job on that.
I'm so nervous about playing it. Not that I don't think the game is good, because I've heard so many good things about it being great. I'm terrified of being that player
that knows too much.
Like, I'm a really big Trek nerd, and I don't know how well I'm going to be able to play and be like, that's not what would happen, people. Like,
we made an agreement. Like, we're starting a couple of months after the Battle of Wolf
359. Wolf 359.
I almost because I keep saying it the wrong way. I keep saying 395.
Yeah,
359. We're starting 2 months after that. I said everything that's canon up to this point is fine. Everything after that didn't happen.
Oh,
so it's
You're
like
killing me, Smalls.
It's starting fresh
You're
from
killing
there.
me, Smalls. I hate that.
Why?
All right, so here's the thing. Can I drag my soapbox out for a second? Okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing about Star Trek. The thing about Star Trek that fans of Star Trek love is the attention to continuity. Minus the old show where they were a little sloppy because it was the 1960s. Next Gen, DS9, Voyager do a really good job of paying attention to continuity, such that if you are a fan of those shows, like, you understand not only the history of what's happened, but like kind of logically can understand, like, there's a logic to that universe that is well obeyed. Yeah. And the thing that I hate about Enterprise was, and the thing I'm having trouble with the new one is the second you tell me that Star Trek is non-canon, I'm like, well, what's the point? Now it's just science fiction game.
But it's a role-playing game.
I get that.
But why do I want to play in the world that is...
You don't have to play in... Like, you don't have to be those characters. And again, this is about to become a topic for a show. But, like, here's the difference. If I'm going to run Star Trek and you're going to run Star Trek, all right? I'm going to run it. We're going to have all of those things that happened in the other shows are going to be in the background. And occasionally, cast-offs from those other shows are going to get pulled in. because I'm super comfortable. Like, I know where all those pieces come from.
I would rather have my what if.
Yeah.
Like, I could still have all that stuff doing things in the background, but...
Can you, and we'll talk about this in just a second, can you put a pin in talking about established IPs?
Can you also put a ping in there to have Sean Merwin on that show? Because me and him already had this conversation.
Did you?
Yeah.
Can I just go have this somewhere else? Is Merwin with me or against me on this one?
I'm not telling you.
Okay. I mean, I know why you don't do it. I'm just saying that for Trek, I have problems when we go off canon. I don't care if you say, hey, we're doing Wolf 359 and we're going to play over in this part of the quadrant where nothing that's been written into canon was done and you can be your ship and go do your ship, your missions.
Mm-hmm.
But just tossing what amounts to some great universe development and stuff like that is a problem for me. Anyway, I sense us going into a whole show topic, so let's not talk about that. I am also interested in Star Trek.
What's the last one?
Tales from the Loop. Tales from the Loop. I put my sights on this a little while ago. I am seriously committed to, with the group that I would run Tales from the Loop with, we are playing Blades. So I'm not ready to switch out. Oh, I can answer that right now, Mo. Abrams Trek. Abrams Trek is a wonderful sci-fi show that's about a Star Trek-like world. The casting in it is phenomenal. I think the casting in that show is phenomenal. Is it Trek? No, it's like a sci-fi show that's Star Trek-like. Anyway, remember when I told you I'm nervous about playing this game because I might be that guy? I'm that guy.
You are. You shouldn't play it.
I know. I'm that guy. That's why I can't play it. We'll talk about that later. Okay.
Where are we at?
Actually, it's not only the place where the Borg took place at Wolf 359. That's where Sisko's wife is killed.
Well, yeah. In that battle.
Well, I know. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's mosey on because I just became that guy. We're into important show terminology, my friend.
Okay, good.
Speaking of important show terminology, we're going long.
Yep, that's actually the first one on the list, Bob. Give me a second.
Oh, man.
If you listen to this show for any length of time, especially if you go back during the now dubbed Silver Age of Misdirected Mark, you're going to hear some terms that get used quite a bit. We don't always define them, so this is a chance for a glossary. Now, I put most of them down, but I think in talking we found like a couple of others.
Yeah.
So we'll need to put those in as well. The first one, which is for Bob, is...
We're going long.
It's Bob's job to suddenly realize that this show is going to go longer than we planned. And that is... That's the thing about this show. It has kind of a time limit. Kind of.
Not really.
Not really.
I mean, we have to stop at 10:45.
We have to stop at 10:45. But other than that, we just keep rolling.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one, Chris. I'm just going to go through these, and then I'll just yell them, and people can just yell out what they are. What's the chat room for life?
It is the chat room that is listening to us talk right now on the Twitch stream.
And why do we call them the chat room for life?
Because... I don't know. Why do we call them the chat room for life?
I think they named themselves.
I'm pretty sure they named themselves the chat room for life.
Hashtag
chat room for life because it's the place to be.
Yeah. It's because it's that like whatever for life thing. So, Marine for life or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they're like chat room for life.
The Queen and the Queen's time is the Queen is Senda, the Queen of the chat room is where she got her name from. And the Queen's time is the time zone in which Senda resides. And currently that is Mountain Time. So when you hear the closing of the show and we say that the live show is at 8:45 p.m., 6:45 p.m., the Queen's time.
We're talking about
that is what we're talking about.
Yep, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Then there's the thing that we say with the words of the
Misdirected Mark, word scramble.
Yeah, so that's when we screw up. We tend to say Misdirected Mark, word scramble.
That one is very much a U2 thing.
Oh, yeah.
U2.
And I totally stole that, too, because they did it on Hits FM 97.7 from Canada. They have a bumper for that. When somebody screws something up, they hit the button and it says Hits FM word scramble.
Oh, nice.
So I stole it.
So, but that one, like you two do that a lot.
Then there's the thing where if I say him or something gender specific, I then say her and then say folks because I'm always trying to be as gender parodied as I possibly can be.
Yes. But it's fun because when you catch yourself doing it, you try to correct it, and and that's exactly how you do it. You're like, that's for him, her, folks.
Yep, every time.
You're like Maui in Moana. Hero of man, not just man,
women too,
women
and,
too,
and all the people,
Yep.
It's they stole my joke.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Here's one that was put in there. Trad.
I plugged that in because it came up in the chat room.
So, traditional gaming, I guess, is any kind of game that assumes that you have a game master who has most of the power and players
And narrative authority.
And players who are mostly in control of their players.
Yeah.
Their characters,
and
I
not
should
too
say.
much narrative authority.
Yeah, not too much narrative authority. The only narrative authority that they have is what their characters are going to do.
Yep. And so if you want some good examples, pretty much like every role-playing game from the 80s.
Yeah. That is a pretty generalized idea of what we talk about when we're talking about trad.
Yeah, I mean when we talk about trad gaming, like what we're shorthanding in modern times, what we're shorthanding is Pathfinder,
Yeah.
Shadowrun, those kind. Like,
I mean, we're talking about story games. When people say story games, what we're really talking about is that the people who are playing the game have more narrative authority than just over their characters.
Exactly. So now we're talking about games like Fate, where Fate, and we've talked about this in the past. Fate's an interesting hybrid, but Fate has grants players narrative authority
because you can create an advantage. Yeah.
What are some other games that have like that high degree of narrative authority? I mean, basically
a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games have that.
Yeah. Powered by the Apocalypse has that in that, like, when you go through a move, the move may let you create something right there on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about trad versus story game, and we don't use indie anymore, trad versus story game, and we try not to pit them like that.
Yeah, because really what we're just talking about is where it's a shorthand for where is the narrative authority, and it's not an on-off switch. There's a gradient to it.
Yeah, because now when you get to like 5th edition, like it can't really.
I mean, 5th edition is mostly a trad game.
Yeah, but it has some elements in it, like inspiration and stuff like that aren't completely trad.
Yeah, because inspiration inspiration isn't even like you can just give it to somebody else to make a die roll. So that is a strange space where like it's a mechanism to give somebody else a die roll as long as you can justify it.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to justify it actually. So I mean, it does sit pretty firmly in the traditional space. Like you can play it by giving the players more narrative authority if you want by asking questions. But you can do that with any game, right? Like,
Yep.
but there's no mechanisms in there for it.
So if you hear us talk about trad,
Just like that.
yeah, and we're not trying to make it derogatory. It is a particular style of play in game.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with
We
it or anything
actually
like that.
play them.
I play a lot of 5th edition.
Yeah.
Like I quite enjoy 5th edition D&D.
I played a shit ton of trad games through the years.
And sometimes I get annoyed at playing story games now and again. Like Fiasco sometimes drives me crazy.
Yeah, I know you have a thing with Fiasco. I like playing Fiasco, but I tend to just not take it as seriously.
Fiasco needs to be done with the right people.
It sometimes drives me crazy. Like I played it with the on She's a Super Geek.
Yeah.
With most of the All-Stars, the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars. It was great. We had a great time.
I tend to have really good experiences with Fiasco, but I also tend to facilitate that, and I do play for a certain tone, which is like serious, like dark comedy, like really dark comedy, terrible things. Anyway,
so what about levels?
Levels is an episode, and I don't remember the exact number. Maybe Bob can find it before I finish explaining it. But Levels of the game.
221 is either arcs or levels.
Okay, so Levels of the game is a concept that we talked about where we talk about where your consciousness resides during the play of a game, whether it is in like the character, whether it's at the group level, whether it's at the game, i.e. the mechanism, mechanics level, etc. And the idea is that as we play games, our focus, our consciousness actually travels up and down these levels. So at different parts, when we're engaging different parts of the game and different parts of play, we're engaging a different focus. Like when we're rolling to attack and do damage, we have moved into the mechanics level of the game. Game level. And when we are giving an impassioned speech about how we feel about the death of our comrade, we are in the player level.
Are we in the player level or the character level?
I'm sorry, character level. Player level is like, I got to go to the bathroom and I want to eat a pizza. But anyway, there's a whole episode where we talk about the layer model. It's a pretty much us thing.
Nobody else really talks about it.
Nobody else really talks about it. It hasn't really been published anywhere. It's an us thing, but we do talk about it from time to time because we do talk about things like level switching in play, and that how
that creates latency.
Right. Well, for instance, before we get into latency, Blades in the Dark is a game that has a serious amount of level switching. Like you come in and out of character, and you go between character and game like quite a lot with that game.
The game
episode 209, by the way.
What's 221 then?
Probably Arc of the Misdirected.
Arc of the Misdirected.
Okay, so talk about latency real quick.
Latency is whenever you have to engage with a thing and it stops the game from moving forward.
Yeah.
So looking up rules, how hard it is to process from one thing to the next, how long it takes you to go into a mechanic, resolve the mechanic, and get out of the mechanic.
Yeah, the time to get in and out from the narrative.
Yes.
Yeah. And latency becomes a thing for like it's a thing that has to do with immersion. It's a thing that has to do with how smooth a game runs.
Now, if the mechanics of a game are fun to play with, then they don't create latency.
Yeah, because then you don't mind.
Yeah, if they build into the feel of play, right? Like latency is often dependent on how you're looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just a term for getting in and out of a certain part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Play better games, damn it.
So this is a philosophy.
It is a philosophy. It is also sometimes an event at conventions.
It is. So this is often the panel that me and Phil and whoever else is around tend to give from Misdirected Mark Productions, and we will often give the 101 advice of a thing, and then we will go into the deeper end of how to make that better, because that is the idea of playing better games, damn it.
Yeah.
It's because we want you to, because we're like, we should stop settling for the games that are okay and push ourselves to play better games.
Yeah, it's also the philosophy of if a game is not a good fit for you or your group, go find another game.
Yeah, that is a true
that there's
thing.
probably a better game out there for you.
And we'd like to talk about how to do that.
Yeah.
How to figure that out. Because we don't want to just say do a thing. We want to tell you how to do that thing.
Yeah,
or ways to figure that out for yourselves.
Right, because if you tell me you don't like Pathfinder, like, I can't help you find another game. I need to understand, like, what is it you're not liking about Pathfinder? Mm-hmm. And then often we get into the, like what's going on mechanism-wise.
Yeah.
And then we'll tell you, like, okay, what you don't like is this mechanism. Mm-hmm. Now let's show you a game where that mechanism doesn't exist.
Then also it works to say, what mechanisms do you like from Pathfinder?
Yeah. Like, for instance, if you tell me, like, look, I love playing fantasy games that, where I'm going through dungeons and hacking things up. But what's driving me crazy is my players spend, all their time, like, tweaking their characters with feats and all that other stuff. Like, I'm going to tell you that, like, the mechanism we're talking about is that player mastery mechanism, that metagame thing where players are, playing to tune their character. Mm-hmm. And then I'd tell you go play like BX, DCC, something like that, where those things don't exist.
It's true.
You still get all that flavor, no feats, no skills, no advancements, like that kind of thing. Anyway, that's play better games, damn it.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about Polygamorous.
Polygamorous is actually an invention from the Chat Room for Life, because that is how awesome they are. We got to talking about, I've said that I used to say I was system promiscuous, that I will play all sorts of games and have played all sorts of games throughout my life. And I used to call it system promiscuous. And then the Chat Room one day called it Polygamorous. And then Senda actually made the Polygamorous logo, which is a D20 and a fate die with a little heart between them. And that's actually a shirt that you can get on our website.
It's true.
So the Polygamers shirt is a thing. And Polygamers means that you are a lover of many different types of games. I am definitely Polygamers. I love role-playing games. And I, again, I will play many, many different types if given the chance.
Man, I'm telling you, we're not going to have an after show.
No, I know. We're going to run this mother right to the wall.
We're not going to have a social media depository. We're not going to have any of that stuff.
Yep. This 101 is going long.
Going
right.
the distance. She's going for speed.
All right. Let's get into the last segment.
Of need.
Let's get into the last segment, and then we're going to do our final questions from the Chat Room for Life, and then we'll exit gracefully from this thing.
Yeah. So what is the deal with Encoded Designs, Gnome Stew, and Misdirected Mark? So often another thing that you will hear on the show is us talking about Encoded Designs and Gnome Stew. And we're going to finish this 101 talking about those things and how they tie together. So Phil, tell us about Encoded Designs.
So Encoded Designs is our game design company. It's our game design and publishing company that we started in 2014. It's made up of a group of partners. So it is It is what we affectionately call our hippie commune. It is myself. It is you. It is Bob. It is John Arcadian.
Yep.
Take note of that name because you're going to hear it again in a second.
Yep.
Sean Merwin. And our graphic designer, Tim Jones.
Yes.
We have produced a number of products over the years, starting with our first ever Encoded Designs product, which was Dangerous Space Jail.
Dangerous Space Jail.
Which is going to come back for DCC.
Which is great, because we already have all the art and everything. So.
A Dangerous Space Funnel is on its way.
I can't wait to relay that out for
again?
DCC. Yeah.
And we did Part-Time Gods of Fate.
Super proud of my relay out.
I actually really like your 2.0 version of that game. We did Part-Time Gods of Fate. We've done a number of other smaller things. We've made some D&D modules. I like modules because I'm old school.
Sure.
We've done some D&D adventures.
People of a certain age call them adventures.
What's that?
People of a certain age call them adventures.
Yes. We've done a bunch of things. If you go on to DriveThru, you can actually just click and look up Encoded Designs.
See the 50 products that are there?
We also have a Patreon called the Character Cache.
Yep.
That's a thing that Encoded Designs does every month, where we have teamed up with one of our favorite artists, Matt Morrow, and Matt draws a character, and we write it up and we stat it out. And it's a Patreon that runs every month. Patrons actually get to vote and come up with what the idea for the character will be, and then one of the writers from Encoded will write that character up. It's super fun. Like we've all done, like you and I have been writers. Bob's edited a bunch of them, but they're super fun to do. Like I love doing them.
I agree.
And Matt's artwork's fantastic. All right, Chris, talk about Gnome Stew.
So Gnome Stew is the largest GMing blog and has been around since 2008. It is a number of people who actually are on Misdirected Mark Productions.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, they write for it, and plus a bunch of other people. It has a podcast that is associated with Misdirected Mark Productions, the Gnome Cast. And it also has its own Patreon, and they release articles Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's all about game mastering advice, reviews, things like that. And like I said, part of that Patreon campaign has led to the creation of the Gnome Cast. Like I mentioned before, it's a sort of sponsored show.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's hosted here.
Yep. Hosted on Misdirected Mark Productions. Also, the episodes appear there.
Yep.
So that's the Gnome Stew. They've won $1 billion Ennies at this point. That's subjective.
Quite a
but,
few.
There are a couple of them hanging in this room.
Yeah.
Off camera, but there are a couple of them hanging in this room.
Yeah,
which we'll get to in just a moment.
They have a standing rivalry, I put in quotes, with Kobold Press.
Yeah. dirty, filthy kobolds.
Dirty, filthy kobolds.
Yeah.
Although I heard recently that that some folks from the Gnome Cast might be staging a coup to throw John Arcadian off his throne since he's been so busy lately.
That would be a terrible idea.
I agree.
Yeah. We'll defend that.
But we don't want to. But we don't want to be thrown in the stew.
No.
It's really just more of a campaigning for gnome rights.
Oh boy.
What?
First, as soon as gnome, much like those, much like Dobby and the rest of those house elves, like rights is not really the thing you need for being a gnome.
We just don't want to be thrown in the stew.
You get used to it.
Are you saying you've been thrown in the stew?
And back.
Okay then.
Gnome resurrection, man. It's a thing.
Okay, as long as there's resurrection.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what about Misdirected Mark Productions?
So we talked about this earlier. This is a network of shows, and now I'm going to show you the Venn diagram of how this all lines up. So, Chris, where do you fall across those three groups?
Well, I started this crazy thing.
You're the head of Misdirected Mark Productions.
One of the heads.
Yep.
I am also a partner in Encoded Designs.
You are a partner.
Mm-hmm. And I am a writer-contributor to Gnome Stew.
Yep.
So I do all three of those things.
Yep.
Phil, what about you?
I am a co-host here on Misdirected Mark and on Pandas Talking Games.
Uh-huh.
I am one of the partners and legally the person who's responsible for Encoded Designs.
It's true.
So yeah, I'm technically, I think, founder and partner in Encoded Designs.
It's true.
I am also a founding gnome. I am one of the original 2008 gnomes on Gnome Stew.
It's a long time to be a gnome.
Yep. Robert.
Yeah, I am co-host here and tech dude. I'm a partner at Encoded Designs, and I am editor at Gnome Stew.
You can see how these things are all just kind of like...
You see where the Venn diagram started to pile up.
Yeah.
Chris, tell me about Sean Merwin.
So he's a co-host on Down with D&D, and he's also one of the partners for Encoded Designs. Why don't you tell me about Senda?
Senda's a co-host on Pandas Talking Games. She is a partner at Misdirected Mark, and a contributor at Gnome Stew.
Yeah, that's true. Arcadian, we mentioned him before, John Arcadian, one of the coolest names in gaming. He is the gnome-in-chief over at Gnome Stew. He runs the deal over there.
Yep.
And he's also one of the partners at Encoded Designs.
And Angela.
Well, she is a writer at Gnome Stew, and she is she is the primary host of the Gnome Cast.
Yeah, so what we're getting at here is that the partners of Encoded all have their hands in the other two parts.
Yeah.
And we leverage all three of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Currently for ourselves, but we have grander plans to actually help other people by taking advantage of the fact that we have one of the largest websites, a sizable podcast network, and a publishing company.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big.
It's getting there.
It's aligning.
There's potential.
I mean, there's a lot of rituals that we perform to align all of the pieces.
It's true.
So yeah, so what's the deal? The deal is that we all do this stuff, and it's got it crosses over all over the place. So for instance, we talk about on this show quite a bit the game I'm designing, Hydro Hacker Operatives.
Mm-hmm.
My design journal for Hydro Hacker Operatives is an article series on Gnome Stew. And eventually, when the game gets published, it'll be published by Encoded. Like, that's kind of how this thing pulls together.
I mean, we have podcasts that touch on all that stuff, too. So, I mean, like, everything Gnome Stew, Encoded Designs, Misdirected Mark has something to do with it, usually.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's that little web of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, that's the 101 episode.
Yeah.
It's a lot, I know. Hopefully, if you're new to the show, this will help you understand why we're talking about the things that we're talking about during the show and what we're talking about during the show. Mm-hmm. And if you've been around for a bit, I hope this has revealed a few tidbits you did not know before. And we have no time left for questions. So, real quick, Patreon shoutouts, because that's a thing I need to do. Drew Smith, Rob Whitaker, Nikki Lewandowski, Merrick Blackman, Jared Rasher, Robert Aducci, and Craig Just Craig. Thank you all so much for being our patrons and for helping us to make sure that we could have things like this 101 episode for new listeners.
Are you down with doing some after show stuff where we answer the rest of those questions?
Yeah, we will absolutely do that.
Okay.
So with that, thank you everyone so much for listening.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, 6:45 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch where you can chat with our other listeners in our ever awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
Mm-hmm. If you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts and take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network. We already mentioned them all, so I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah, all of those. After you have listened to the show and you'd like to leave us some feedback, you can reach us directly by email, Chris at misdirectedmark.com.
That's me.
Phil at misdirectedmark.com.
He's over there.
Bob at misdirectedmark.com.
Yep.
At the end.
Check out our Facebook group. Hit us up on Twitter at misdirectedmark, at DNA Phil, at Robert M. Everson, at The Light 101.
Woo!
Or check out our G Plus community, like we talked about earlier on the show.
Uh-huh. If you like what we do here and on other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support any of the Patreon campaigns that support those shows, because there's different ones for different shows at times. Patrons get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, bi-weekly D&D offerings, and other special releases. That's the Misdirected Mark Patreon.
As we talked about earlier in the show.
Yeah. Well, with that, this has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
As we talked about earlier in the show.
Uh-huh. We didn't talk about this, though. Mic drop.
This is where I punch the mic.
Uh-huh.
We out!